WWE Summerslam 2024 is in the books, and it may have been the most consequential event of Triple H's time leading creative. 4 title changes, 5 if you include last week's SmackDown with the tag titles, and the death of an all-time faction in Judgment Day, and of course, the return of Roman Reigns. On this Wrestle Juice, we're going to take a look at your hot takes. Hey friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to Wrestle Juice. Let's go ahead and dive into your hot takes. First up from Al Stover. Says Rhea and Damian betrayed Edge, so it's fitting that their Judgment Day members turn their backs on them. I'd love somebody to do like some sort of analysis video on just the amount of like lies and deception that Judgment Day has been kind of built on. If you think back during their history, the origin story of Dom and Rhea, for example, the origin story of Judgment Day, as Al Stover is talking about here, about how Edge started him and then he got basically kicked out of his own group. All the lies and deception along the way, and granted, throughout it all, there was this really amazing chemistry between most of the members of Judgment Day, and at some point, kind of all the members of Judgment Day. There were a lot of great times, but so much of their existence, kind of, and similar to the Bloodline, sort of hinged on how much power can we grab, how much gold can we grab, how much success can we have, because that mattered above everything. And now that the two leaders of Judgment Day, Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest, are now on the outside looking in, it's sort of fitting. Let's be honest. Dom made the right damn choice. He really did. If you think about where Rhea basically kidnapped and brainwashed Dom Mysterio into the Judgment Day, turning his back on his family, on his actual family in the process. This is kind of just karma. This is just karma for what they did to Dom in the first place, and it's not terribly surprising. Liv Morgan offered Dom the chance to actually be a man, to actually feel like he's got some sort of control and power. Now, obviously, it's all just manipulation and bullshit, and Dom's going to end up turning back at some point. But in the meantime, oh my God, the boos are going to be absolutely nuclear. But the Judgment Day wasn't founded on anything altruistic. The Judgment Day has always been based off of a lot of different lies and deceptions. And so it is absolutely fitting that they ended up crumbling because of it. Egos clash, etc., etc. So yeah, and I love that 52 people thumbs up this because it's absolutely and totally true. The history of Judgment Day is actually kind of an ugly one. It's just their chemistry was so damn good, and Judgment Day in general are so damn cool, and everybody loves them because they are the relationship that was built between both the performance and the characters just shone through on the screen. Is it shined through or shown through? Whatever. You know what I'm saying. So yeah, RIP Judgment Day. They'll probably still, I hope they retain that awesome entrance song that they've got. And I hope they retain the name because Liv Morgan wanted to take what Rhea had, not necessarily destroy what Rhea had. And so I hope we've got, similar to Bad Bloodline, we're going to have Bad Judgment Day now. So, yeah. Alex Richard here says the Judgment Day is one of the best factions in the past decade, maybe further. How they have been able to elevate Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley, Dom, while carrying Raw for a hot minute is incredible. I'll be honest, a lot of these takes are not hot because I think a lot of people really, really enjoyed SummerSlam last night. And so a lot of these are going to be kind of observations, not necessarily hot takes. And this is kind of one of those. I absolutely agree. I think Judgment Day has been an all-time faction. I think they're going to be looked back upon very, very fondly, like The Shield, like New Day, et cetera, et cetera. But absolutely, I agree with this, man. I think that they have been absolutely one of the best factions that WWE's put together. And yeah. This hot take also kind of is indicative of what a lot of you guys are saying. A lot of these hot takes are all about Judgment Day. Obviously, there was a lot of Judgment Day stuff going on last night, but a lot of the like Roman Reigns' return, although a massive, huge deal, don't get me wrong, the crowd absolutely exploded for it. But it kind of also goes to show that the story of Judgment Day and how many layers there are to it, similar to the fact that there's so many layers to the Drew McIntyre CM Punk stuff, can carry WWE. That's why Raw has been so good and SmackDown's been kind of mid, because people are still kind of not huge on the new bloodline. They think that Solo Sikoa is not quite up to the task of Roman Reigns, which in my opinion is kind of his story, but there does need to be a little bit more there to Solo Sikoa. But people are emotionally invested in the Judgment Day. Yes, they love Roman Reigns and the crowd is always chanting for Roman Reigns, but Monday Night Raw is so much fun because of the wrestlers that are there involved in these intricate, complex stories. And that's what people, I think, are really tuning in to see. That's why so many of your comments have more to do with the Judgment Day than, for example, Roman Reigns. Ad Savage, for example, points out Finn Balor turning on Damian Priest was perfect, as last year Damian Priest cost Finn Balor his chance to win the world title at SummerSlam. That's the thing. When Triple H is sort of, doling out his creative, when he's programming his creative, he does look long-term, and you got to appreciate that. You absolutely have to appreciate that. Last year at SummerSlam, we had Priest accidentally costing Seth because he can't get past this Money in the Bank thing. And this year, Finn Balor cost Priest, but this time it's absolutely intentional. Kyle the Ginger says this SummerSlam is an all-timer. It makes Raw and SmackDown one of the most anticipated shows. Is Roman going to be there at SmackDown? What's Cody going to have to say about Roman? What's Solo going to have to say about Roman? Absolutely. We've got a new US champion in LA Knight there on SmackDown. So hopefully it'll give a kick in the pants to SmackDown. And obviously Raw, I think everybody's really interested in seeing what's going to go down on Monday Night Raw. Aussie Horror here has a highly upvoted take. Says the storytelling, in-ring psychology, and intensity of Punk versus Drew was proof perfect of why Punk is such an important wrestler in the modern wrestling canon, and it also perfectly encapsulated just how good Drew is too. Rollins deserves credit for his role in the match too. Somebody in our live stream chat yesterday over there at Going in Raw said it perfectly. I was super sports entertained by this match. And I think that's sort of maybe to a degree doing it a disservice, but if the idea of the concept of sports entertainment, which I know WWE is trying to get away from, is that it's more character-based stuff where there's, less emphasis on the heavy work rate stuff and more emphasis on the dynamics of the relationships of the people involved, then I'm all in on that, because this was the most entertaining match for my money last night. I think my favorite personal in-ring match last night was Gunther versus Damian Priest. But the actual, the interpersonal dynamics of Punk, Drew, and Rollins last night, and that damn bracelet that CM Punk was obsessed with, and that's what ended up costing him the match, I thought was absolutely off the charts awesome. I was watching that match, just thoroughly entertained the entire time. And me personally, that's what I'm into pro wrestling for. It's for the characters, it's for the stories, and it's what a match can be when there's so much more going on outside of the match. That's what pro wrestling is to me. That's what I've always been interested in when it comes to pro wrestling. And that match last night between Punk Drew with Rollins as special guest referee. And I'm so happy that seemingly CM Punk came out of that unscathed, because I agree that in terms of modern pro wrestling, CM Punk is in a perfect spot here with the WWE. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next for that. Static here says, hot take, Damian Priest's best match of his career so far. He's had some really, really good matches. God damn, this was such a good one, though. I absolutely love this match. The chops, bleeding from the chest, all that shit I thought was great. Real TJP says, I think Jacob Fatu should pause on the announce table splash for a bit. Don't want to see him get hurt this soon. I think the jury's still, I'm filming this at 10 a.m. in the morning. I think the jury's still kind of out. I know there was a picture floating around with him with a walking boot on. Hopefully this is not that big of a deal. I haven't heard anything about a tear or anything more severe. Maybe the news is out there by the time this goes up. I don't know. But I don't know. I think, man, it's wrestling. You need those big dramatic moments. This was a major pay-per-view, a major story beat. You can't tell the guy not to do this when he's done it so many times effectively and without injuring himself. It's wrestling. Stuff like this happens, Scottish Bisque says this show proves that predictability in wrestling is not a bad thing. The outcomes were not a surprise, but how they got to those outcomes were thoroughly entertaining. The journey is more important than the destination. I say this over and over again. You can actually predict the outcome of most movies. I was watching Back to the Future with my kid the other day. It was the first time she ever saw it. And towards the finish, when Marty McFly has got to get back in his car, has got to get in the car and goes down the road to turn around, and Doc Brown is trying to figure out all the electrical wires, and then the car dies. Bama turned to me and said, Dad, does this work out in the end? Because the tension was so thick. Of course it works out in the end. I told her, you got to watch the movie. She said, no, Dad, you got to tell me. So I told her, and she sat there and loved the rest of it, knowing that everything was going to work out okay. She loved the movie, by the way. It's a classic, all-time classic. But that it's like, like if you're an adult at this point, walking into pretty much any movie, what the outcome's going to be, how it's going to end up. It is the journey. It is the process that is important. And absolutely, predictability in wrestling is totally fine. That's why you got to book some interesting twists and turns along the way and make sure that the performers execute them in an interesting way. I agree with this, absolutely. TTM says, hot take, the real reason Roman hasn't come back until now is because his new shirt was on back order. Can't make a return with a shiny new custom tee. So apparently, Roman Reigns, they put on sale a new custom WWE Championship for $600, a Roman Reigns themed one. And within an hour, it had fucking sold out. And now I see on eBay, they're reselling them for double the price. These fucking these scalpers, these absolute WWE Custom Championship scalpers are now doubling the price on eBay. I was thinking of getting one and doing like a whole unopening here at WrestleJuice and doing a review and getting out the fancy camera with the macro lens and everything. And before I could do that, before I could financially figure out how I could accomplish this, it sold fucking out. By the time I think we were done with our podcast last night, this goddamn thing had sold out. So upset about this. But yeah, can't make a return without a shiny new custom tee. No, I agree with that, man. You think the OTC, the over-the-counter shirt, was on back order? Supply chain issues, maybe? Calvin Barnhill says, CM Punk is one of my favorite wrestlers ever, but I can't get past the fact he prefers Pepsi over Coke. So I try not to drink a lot of soda these days, but yeah, I'm a Diet Pepsi guy. Definitely not a Diet Mountain Dew, though. Hardy8966 says the IWC is going to call this SummerSlam mid, but it was genuinely one of the best ever, man. It was really good. I mean, history will sort of dictate whether or not it's going to be considered one of the best ever. And I get it. The IWC is often very negative, but I've seen a lot of praise for SummerSlam last night. Okay, we have our first actual hot take of the night. I think Gorilla Mon says, as much as I want Finn to get his much deserved singles heel push, before that comes, I'd love to see a small stint of him and JD joining Imperium. Nah, I'm good with that. I don't need to see that. Gunther hates Finn Balor. Why would Finn join Imperium? That doesn't make any sense, Gorilla. Alex Payne says, with bloodline matches relying so heavily on interference, everything before just falls a bit flat. It was different with Roman because Roman was, number one, a really good storytelling wrestler. His moveset was a bit on the limited side, but he was a really, really good storytelling wrestler, and his shit talk was so good. Solo's just not there. We got 16 minutes of a match between him and Cody before the bloodline interference stuff kicked in. And he's not the most compelling wrestler in the world. Hopefully he'll get there. I feel like we're going to get like a year or two of Solo figuring out really how to get to that next level. Because look, it took Roman 10 years. With Solo, I think it's going to take time. But I think he will eventually get there, and we'll all appreciate Solo at that point. Hongtop John says, congratulations on Drew McIntyre becoming the AEW Real World Champion. He says, great to watch CM Punk beat the washed allegations, had a classic match with great wrestling and great storytelling. I'm so happy the guy didn't get injured. I really am. And so let's take this storyline to the next step. And I don't know where that's going to go. Ocean Osborne here says Nia Jax has improved so much. She never had a bad match. She never has a bad match these days and knows her role perfectly. Her and Tiffany with the albatross that is the briefcase will be intriguing for months to come. Thank you for mentioning the Nia Jax Bayley match. I thought it was awesome. And I agree, man. I honestly did not think WWE would roll with the story of bad guy with the briefcase, Nia Jax, bad guy with the title, and their alliance. Talk about an albatross. Talk about the elephant in the room being this briefcase. I'm really interested to see how WWE approaches this story. It's rare that you have like a bad guy with the title and a bad guy with the briefcase and they're on the same page. So we'll see how this all works out. Is Nia going to try to convince Tiffany to cross brands to go and cash in on Liv Morgan? Or are we just going to have to deal with the tension in the room? That's what makes the stories good, is the tension involved in the characters. Adidia Paul says Judgment Day storyline is the number one storyline in WWE right now, above Bloodline Cody and above Punk Drew Seth. Man, for my money, I agree. For my money, I 1,000% agree. And I think a lot of people are so invested in it, like I already said, for good reason, because they put so much time and effort into crafting this story. Luke Q here says, both Finn and Dom turning in the same night was too much. They could have milked the turns and had Judgment Day crumble more slowly. I personally disagree with this. I think you do it in one big shock moment. SummerSlam is going to go down as one of the most memorable ones because of this. Clean break, and now you've got a big old what the hell's going to happen next. I disagree with this, but it's a hot take, man. 11 people thumbs up this one. I love this. It's an actual hot take and not just like a popular opinion. So thank you, Luke. We got somebody who's there on the scene. Mark says, I saw it live for my first premium live event ever. It was so awesome. But there was one point where everyone was chanting to turn the light off because they were literally blinding us and making it hard to see what was actually happening. I can't do these stadium shows anymore, man. Last time I did one was WrestleMania 33 and it fucking sucked because we had floor seats, but they were like 20 rows back, maybe 30 rows back. And like they had these horrible blinding lights. Oh my God, it gave me the nastiest headache. It sucked. I never want to do another stadium show again. So yeah, man, dude, look, I understand completely, Mark. DBC says Jelly Roll is the greatest choke slam of all time. You know, dude, you got to give credit to Austin Theory. This dude is so good at whatever he does. He's just given dog shit stuff to work with. But this guy threw himself up into the air like 6 feet and made Jelly Roll look like $1 million with that choke slam. So shout out to Austin Theory for that, man. I think that guy is terrific. I hope they start doing something more interesting with him. Shortest name of all time says LA Knight versus Logan Paul was 5 stars in my match of the night. I was just really happy to see LA Knight finally get that United States Championship. Good for him. Good on him. And you know, for a dude who has been grinding guy who almost retired from pro wrestling before he came to NXT, was on the verge of retiring, to finally realize his fullest potential, to know that he had it in him, and Triple H saw it and ran with it. He still gets huge reactions, so good on him. Blazing Jeff says Bayley's championship reign is the worst of the Triple H era. She essentially did nothing of note. She was out a good majority of premium live events. The only notable thing she did with Piper Niven was half-assed. Liv Morgan didn't do much with the title either, but at least she had a compelling story. Bayley didn't have anything. So, like, I don't disagree with this. I absolutely do not disagree with this, because you could look at, like, you know, the Awesome Truth or the other tag team titles for being in terms of like not utilizing them properly, but those are the tag titles. Traditionally speaking, WWE doesn't use the tag titles all that great anyways. But you look at Bayley's championship win, and it was like, hey, kind of a big deal. Really good story going into WrestleMania. And since then, it's been kind of nothing, which is kind of surprising because, I don't know, number one, it ain't easy to book babyface champions in the first place. I still got to do that video about that subject. It's not easy to book babyface champions in the first place, but it's Bayley. Triple H should know how to book Bayley into interesting stuff. But yeah, so I kind of agree with this. I kind of agree with this one. A Bridger Man says Intercontinental Championship under-delivered and is clearly setting up for a trilogy match. It was less than 6 minutes long. It was 5 minutes and 40 minutes long. And in fact, it had such little impact that this, after like, I don't know, 150 hot takes that I just scrolled through, this is the first one that talked about Braun Breaker winning the Intercontinental Championship. I hope they do something good with Braun Breaker. Yeah, they'll probably do a third match. Wouldn't surprise me. Braun will probably win that. Hopefully it'll be longer. But my God, 5 minutes and 40 seconds for this match? That's kind of crazy to me. Not more to say. Nothing more to say about that. I hope they have something interesting for Braun Breaker. Well, here says the worry about Punk's injury likelihood is kind of overblown since his first return injury was a freak accident, and the other two were a year-ish apart. Yeah, but at that age, when you get injured, you're out for a long time. There's no Wolverine healing factor like John Cena back in 2000 and whatever. And yeah, I think kind of overblown is the correct sentiment here. I think that given that there's also just the excitement of having him back in the WWE with just an awesome feud, has people more concerned for the injury thing as opposed to if he was just doing a whole lot of nothing. He is older now. And the fact that, you know, he had a terrific match a very physical match against Samoa Joe at All In, and he came out of that fine. But the fact that he shows up in WWE in the first match he's in, the Royal Rumble, televised, he gets injured off of a move that I hadn't really heard of people getting injured off of before, the Future Shock DDT. people are going to understandably be like, oh, God, is this guy going to make it out of his matches okay? But, I'm just hoping that the guy sticks around for a long time and it remains healthy for a long time because obviously he understands, like, Triple H's way of doing creative seems to be right up CM Punk's alley, and everybody's giving their most for that feud. And I think there's a lot of mileage you can get out of there, and hopefully he at least makes it to WrestleMania uninjured so they can do whatever ultimate blow up, because I think that's the plan, is some sort of Punk Drew Rollins thing at WrestleMania. Wow, the Wallinator says John Cena defeats Gunther in the main event of WrestleMania XL Night 1 to win number 17. All right, we'll mark it down that the Wallinator has that as Gunther. I think Gunther's going to hold on to it until WrestleMania, but I think he's going to drop it there. I think the World Heavyweight Championship is going to have shorter reigns. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of Hot Takes for SummerSlam. A lot of you really love SummerSlam, and I love to see that because when you guys like it, usually I do better views over here. You can check out the full podcast length review of SummerSlam over at youtube.com/Steve and Larson. And Larson and I have got our star ratings going up very shortly at the Friendo Club Wrestling channel, so be sure to go check that out. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Appreciate it. Hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe. We'll see you guys around.